We are flipping the pyramid. Flipping the pyramid.
Oi. Hello folks, hopefully that's worked. I was trying to clip the trailing end off there. Hello, welcome. Yes, do you want to come along and help me sing this song? Some good lyrics in there, definitely. And some other various good commentary. I'll come back to it. Yes, hello, welcome. Welcome to flippingthepyramid.co.uk. This is Virtual Shamanizing with me, the HairyCookieMunster, attempting to virtually shamanize. Yes, in the way I do. I may giggle a bit at you, I may laugh a bit at you, I may swear now and then. That's just the way it goes. If you have a problem with the use of certain words, yeah, let's just walk away from that. Yeah. Where shall I begin? Oh, that was, first of all, that first track was Talking Heads, Road to Nowhere. It could be appropriate in so many different ways, I think, but it will link into something I want to come back to later on anyway. Yes, same to you in the chat room. Fuck you too. Anyway, yes, before we descend into silliness already, at least give me a chance to do something before I start getting silly. Yes, please check out the other shows as well. Some of the folks have been beavering away in the background, uploading the shows onto YouTube channel, Flipping the Pyramid YouTube channel, which you can find from the website, as well as some other bits and bobs, some general chit chat that was recorded while we were just chatting in general as we do. Yes, unbeknownst. I saw that appear on the internet. It's like, oh, okay then, yeah, okay, I'll listen to myself, oh dear. But yes, all good stuff there, and the archives are available on the website and they're building up nicely. Please check out the other shows. Got Blue Bus on a Monday night, Aryan on Wednesday with some energising punk music, and Red on a Friday night with his conscious beats and bars, and Keelan on a Sunday doing a bit more, I was going to say journalistic review, but talking about determinism last week, which was very interesting. I didn't catch the show live, but I did listen to it from the archive. It was very interesting, thank you. Yes, and sort of partly links into what I'm going to talk about later. But before we start diving into all that kind of stuff, I suppose we should sort of talk about the news a bit. Yeah, maybe I've talked about it less and less recently, I don't know. I've been trying not to spend too much time bemoaning the general situation which we know is occurring, and just regurgitating stuff that is already out there and available to you if you're looking for it. You know, like we've said time and time again, it's probably not going to be on your mainstream media, it's not going to be on your 6 o'clock news or whatever. You will have to actually metaphorically get off your butt and go and look for it, but you know, it's there. Places like the FTP site, and of course there's lots of others out there doing it, are helping to do that, hopefully, to give people access points to looking for information, finding out what's going on, or at least getting another perspective of what's going on, so you're not stuck just being spoon-fed one point of view. But yes, let's talk about the general news before I start rambling off. I mentioned the RNC in America, Republican National Convention in the USA, I think last week's show or the week before, and at the moment it's the DNC, the Democratic National Convention. Yeah, get me acronyms right. I didn't really want to talk about it at all because it is just absolute ridiculous puppet show. Some interesting things going along with it is people being picked up in a pre-crime fashion to make sure that they don't get there to protest. We knew this was starting to take place since last year. It's not just particular to the United States, it's occurred here in the UK, it's occurring all over the place. It's not exactly anything new per se, other than the amount of it and the how should we put it, the sort of general sweep effect of it in the background behind the general mainstream media chatter. So most of the time the public isn't really aware if this is going on. And of course you get the classic terrorist label. As soon as anything like that occurs, you'll more likely get added onto the watch list, which means, you know, that gives them, in their convoluted legalese delusional sense, that gives them the legitimisation to then point at you and go, you're a suspected terrorist, therefore you're not allowed to go here, you're not allowed to go there, you can't say this, you can't do that. Why am I a suspected terrorist? Because your name's on the list. Have I done anything to get to deserve being on the list? Your name's on the list, so you must be a terrorist, therefore your name's on the list. I can feel a loop coming on here. You're on the list, therefore you must be a terrorist, therefore you're on the list. Sounds familiar. Yes, that's a little bit of what I was going to refer to later. Yes, those loops anyway. But one of the other things that's bubbling away in the general chatter, as I do, I like to try and watch a lot of different avenues of information, not just direct factual news, but I like to watch what I call the talking heads. Again, appropriately why I picked that track, the talking heads. And just watching the general supposed talking points that gets thrown about on the mainstream media, the constant charade of, I define them as non-talking points. Yeah, it's just, well, what suit of clothing, what costume would you like the puppet to wear? What costume, what dance should he do on the stage while he's entertaining you? Yes, all those stupid talking points that they come up with. But one of them that's been fairly predominant, and we did get it a bit in this country with the last election in the UK, people talking about not voting, and of course you get the usual reply of, oh, well, you got to vote. If you don't vote, you can't change the system. You can't. I just sort of wanted to point out how many times, for myself, I did it. Yes, I went through the whole process of thinking I could vote and make a change, and make a difference with the way politics works and stuff like that. I tried it again and again and again and again. And after a while, like that classic Einstein quote, it's debated if it was him or the way he said it, anyway, it's been paraphrased. Definition of madness is repeating the same things expecting a different result. If you continually go back and vote, and yet the same agenda still chugs on no matter which puppet gets into political power, doesn't that tell you something? It means it doesn't matter what you vote, even if you put in like a spoiled ballot deliberately, even then it doesn't matter, because they just put them all in a box and then they make up the numbers they want. It was Stalin that said that classically, it doesn't matter who they vote for, it's who counts the votes. So to say that you have to vote and that not voting won't help, you're not attempting to change the system, to me seems a bit nonsensical. If the system is rigged to the point where it doesn't matter what you vote, they will change it to what they want, then there is literally no point putting your vote into the machine. And to say that if you don't put your vote into the machine, that allows them to cheat it even more. So, well, we know they're cheating already. So if they cheat more, what difference does that make? That's like, you've got a pile of shit and you've got a bigger pile of shit. It's still a pile of shit. Anyway, yes, sorry, ranting on that, because it's one of those things that annoys me. This whole political puppet show, and then trying to persuade people that they have to be involved in it, and by being involved in it they might actually stand a chance of winning. It's just like the lottery delusion. Keep spending your money every week buying lottery tickets, believing that delusion that one day you just might be lucky enough. You'd be better off saving your money or investing it in something like learning some new skills that will enable you to earn more money, whatever, but chasing that dream factor. I think it's got to the point in our societies, and we are starting to see this kind of effect already within places like Greece and Spain now, even more so, which I was going to mention. I think I linked in the chat room the other day a little video piece from the Real News Network where they're talking about the rebellious mayor who is helping the local people in his borough put together farming collectives, and they're going out and doing things like, you know, like Robin Hood styley. They're going out and taking food from supermarkets and handing it out to the poor and needy, etc. Again, please allow for the fact that the mainstream media has almost straight away been trying to do a character assassination on this guy. So, you know, please spend a little bit of time looking into it before you jump to any conclusions. Yes, he himself, the mayor himself, I'm afraid I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and I didn't keep a copy of it. He himself will say he has communist ideals and that kind of ideological ideals, collectivist ideals, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's classic example of the dangerous red in the corner. Oh, be afraid, the communists are coming. Oh. And of course there is a long history of collectivism and agrarianism, anarcho-collectivist groups, etc., within that area of Spain, Andalusia, and further north as well, in Catalonia recently. That's started picking up as well, which means, you know, you're on the border of France now. We were saying this last year to people as Greece was slowly descending into the black hole it's currently being compressed into. This is going to gradually spread through Europe, and a lot of the recent shifting of big financial wealth that's been going on, I feel, is most likely to help bring the euro down. It's not necessarily simply because these people are afraid of losing that particular money that they move. No, they're actively moving their chunks of wealth to create effects within the system. And I think it is more than likely that, you know, we've talked about this a lot before, there is a slow motion car crash going on in this economic system at the moment, and they're helping it on its way while profiting as much as they can from the disaster of it. But before I rambled off, yes, I was mentioning the Robin Hood mayor in Spain, simply because one of the main things that I feel is, if you feel that voting, you want to get involved in some manner to try and change that system to make it more accountable, etc., etc., putting a piece of paper in a ballot box is not going to make any difference whatsoever, because they'll just make up whatever numbers they want. They'll mess with the system in some way, or they'll cheat like Bush did. Or if it comes to it, if their agenda is really demanding it, they'll just say it's null and void and declare some kind of emergency, and the current president will stay in office. If you really want to start making them take notice, you have to do it by the actual actions that will affect the system, that will have a knock-on effect into the system that they are using to manipulate everything. That means vote with your money, be a bit more selective and choose carefully. Think about where you invest your money, how you use your money, where you leave it, what you do with it, etc. Withdraw most of your money out the bank if you can afford to. Put it into something else to protect your wealth. I am not usually one of those people that talks about buying metals and stuff like that, because for me there are other much more important things to do before you worry about storing wealth that may not even be needed in the future. That's a side topic anyway, before I divert myself. But convert your wealth into something that they have as little influence over as possible. Check out some of the other people online that talk a lot about how to invest your money in that kind of subject if you're interested in it. There are other things I feel you should be investing in long before you get to the point of just storing it in material wealth just to actually hold it. You can invest in equipment, you can invest in skills, you can invest in services. There are various services that could help you out if you are attempting to extricate yourself from the system. You really want to affect this system. The best way you can affect this system is to walk away from it and make yourself as truly independent of it as possible, because it's the main thing that gives them any pseudo power. And I say pseudo power because it's only power through your consent. So it's only because you comply with it and say yes sir and actually do what you're being told to do that they have any power. As soon as people start saying no, the power becomes as amorphous as it was in the first place. And that was the other thing I was going to mention. Non-compliance, general strike. You really want to make this system at least stop for 5 minutes so it can be shuffled or rejigged or restructured. If you really think it's possible to actually adjust the system and save it and change it and make it better, you need it to actually stop rolling for 5 minutes. Trying to fix it on the fly while it's moving, and with the agendas that are pushing it and driving it, maybe it's just me being cynical, but I just don't see it happening. Certainly not anytime soon. Anyway, non-compliance, general strike. That's the thing, if enough people just said no for one day, if everybody said no for one day, and of course please don't allow this to fall into silliness of the usual kind of straw man arguments of, oh well, you can't have firemen not being at work, people will die. Why does it always have to be taken to such a silly extreme? Calling for a general strike does not mean that you will put people in potential danger. Again, it's that kind of, like, I call it a straw man argument, strictly speaking. It probably isn't, but you get the kind of point. In a slightly side topic, but more just merely because I wanted to put this out there so that it's the topic is still moving around amongst people, because our mainstream media here, certainly in the UK, is avoiding this issue quite a lot. It's the current situation in Bahrain and the protests that have been going on in Bahrain, the number of people that have died, etc., protesting in exactly the same way as in the other areas that have gone through this Arab Spring protest, but because it's Bahrain, seemingly this is the only logical or sensible conclusion, is that because it's Bahrain, they are being severely suppressed and squashed, and the information is not being allowed to circulate. This one article I just dropped in the chat box is from Press TV, so you find it on presstv.ir if you go to their main site. CNN bans own documentary critical of Bahraini regime. So CNN, that big international news network, put together a documentary about the uprisings in Bahrain, and they've now subsequently shelved it. They're not going to show it. and it does seem most likely that it's not put out into the public sphere, and people are not allowed to see that perspective of what's going on over there at the moment. And of course, there's lots of incidents similar to this that are going on across the planet. Recent massacre of the Myanmar people, other situations similar are rolling on. The agenda, the machine is rolling on, crushing as many people as it cares to, while we're all busy worrying about whether Obama or Romney will be the right person to put into the puppet show. Yeah. Well, you're too busy dancing to their tune, playing the game, deluding yourself that your piece of paper with an X on it will make them change what they do. Yeah. It's just such a loss of energy that could be directed to actually doing something that might make a difference genuinely that you will see in your daily life. Another bit of news which I thought for if there are any listeners in the USA, hopefully there are a few. I've got friends like Adonis over at the FIN network, Freedom Informant Network, which is what freedominfonetwork.org is their web address. This was from before its news. I think this probably popped up on one of the RSS feeds on the FTP site as well. Just find the title for you. So, first audit results in the Federal Reserve's nearly 100-year history were posted today. They are startling. It's got links in there to the actual original postings, etc. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, you can go through and look at some truly staggering numbers. Talking 16 trillion being quietly shuffled, or I should say quietly printed, silently printed by the Fed and handed over to various international banking cartels, cabals. Oh yes, I'm a little bit dubious as to just how deep into the bookwork of the Fed this would actually have dug, considering the Fed being what it is and being as secretive as it is, etc. And as I've often said before, the money magic side of things I don't get too much into the details of, because it is just, as far as I'm concerned, it's money magic. Once you get the principle of how they create the fiat Ponzi scheme and generate the wealth out of it, the actual numbers involved and the to-ing and fro-ing of trading that goes on within that system, it's like seeing leaves being blown around in a hurricane. Once you become aware of the hurricane, you see the hurricane, not necessarily concentrating on all the little leaves. It's being able to see the wood for the trees, I suppose. But yes, interesting nonetheless, for those of you that have a perchance or interest in the financial topic side of things. I'm sure there's lots of details in there that you can get your cerebral teeth into. Hopefully you might find some ammunition out of it, but I would cynically suggest that, if it is that hurricane, you will be just pissing into the hurricane. Yes, anyway. Okay, I've ranted for a fair bit so far. I've mentioned a few news stories. I will come back to some more news stories. Well, one or two in particular anyway, which I want to mention. But first of all, I want to play a tune. It's only about 6 minutes. It's a bit of a short one for them this time. This is from the Juice Media. If you don't know about it, check out YouTube channel The Juice Media as one word. The guys there do a regular series feature called the Rap News, and I think they've been great so far. It's been a brilliant little venture they've done. They do it really well. Yes, anyway, I'll shut up and play their latest one because I think it's quite appropriate for a lot of what's going on at the moment. So yeah, anyway, back in about 6 minutes.
Slurping
On the volume, I think was a bit over on that. Sorry if it was bass farting at you. Yeah, go and listen to it on YouTube if you want to listen to it better. Yes, welcome back. Where was I going to? Links. Yes, the Panopticon. I've been around that before, but interesting. Little news snippet that come out the other day was mentioned on one of the Chit Chat uploads. It's on the Flipping the Pyramid channel, YouTube channel. But Apple gaining the patent to be able to control the cameras in your iPhones, or probably other gadgets as well, iPad and whatever as well. And I don't have any particular link to this news because it's general news out there. Bit sort of linked into the whole trapwire situation as well, isn't it? Isn't it funny how those standards, the file format standards, etc., were the way they were? It seems a bit obvious that Apple were party to what was being set up in the first place. They weren't ignorant of what was being asked of them, and they were complicit to its implementation and rollout, etc. That's why, for them, getting hold of the patent for that is fairly important from their point of view, but also intrinsic to that surveillance state system. Plenty of reports knocking around, certainly from last year. Remember reports during protests, etc., of areas, pockets of cell phone coverage being turned off. So now, if this kind of software tech is giving them the ability to control, I mean, I think if you look into this information, people are probably fairly aware of just how much control they have over your gadgetry and your computers, etc. But this is a situation where they will not only be able to turn off your networks, you've got no interconnectivity, they'll be able to deactivate the camera, etc. as well, so you won't even be able to record, to store footage as evidence, etc. So they're isolating your ability to gather information. When information is their mainstay and their main concern, then it's pretty obvious they will attempt to stifle the enemy's ability to do so, i.e. you. That's the way they see you. You are the enemy of the state. But along with that, reading through the latest sort of postings and stuff earlier on, I caught up with this one from Natural News. It's not exactly any major article, it's just a little article about supposedly so the people at Gizmodo.com got hold of a copy of Apple's employee manual and proceeded to look through it and point out how robotic it seems. And I think this is... No, it's not written by Adams. This particular article on Natural News, titled Secret Apple Employee Training Manual Reveals Company to be a Kooky Techno Cult. Yeah, as I say, it's not exactly anything major in the way of the article itself, just a perspective on looking at Apple as a cult. Seemed interesting to me, considering the little snippet of the FTP chit chat that was uploaded the other day, where we were actually talking about Apple getting that patent, and then that little article comes up on Natural News. I could have said this at the time while we were chatting. Apple does operate in many ways in a sociological and in a marketing sense. Yes, it does operate like a cult, very much so. You cannot question Apple in the sense that, you know, if you speak out against Apple, you immediately incite the acolytes to come out of the woodwork, who will then shower you with defamation. Or maybe that's defecation, you know, and saying how you don't know anything about Apple products. Apple products are fantastic. They're the greatest. They're the best. Apple are so great. Yes, they're so great. They had to install suicide nets around the factory buildings in China. I believe it's China, where these some parts and some bits like the iPod and etc. are produced, because people live in such dire environmental situation over there, the way they are treated and the way they have to work, etc., that they were prepared to throw themselves off buildings, to kill themselves in protest. So the solution, we'll just put up nets so they can't kill themselves. Do you get the kind of idea of where this global agenda is taking us? It's not even the kind of level where you would think it, you know, I was talking about utilitarianism in the other episode. You know, it's not even the stage where they think, oh, well, if they don't want to work, just get rid of them, you know, quietly in the background, 1 bullet per 2 deaths, you know, put them in a line and it uses less bullets as you kill them. It's not even that, because they won't allow you to kill yourself. They need you to be the biological robot. They push you back into the machine. These people have become so desperate they were prepared to throw themselves off a building to kill themselves in protest. But even that freedom, and I hope you'll understand how and why I'm using that word in particular, that freedom is taken away from them. Yes, Apple are so fantastic, aren't they? Yeah, such a wonderful company. Not. Yeah, before I rant even more so about Apple, yes, I do always have a rant whenever it comes to Apple. Are they a cult? Yes, in many ways I think they do have a cultish mentality to them, and they propagate on it and use that to get people to buy their crap. You have to be in the Apple cult. You have to be an Apple genius. That in and of itself is just such a newspeak dictionary definition. Is so Orwellian. Is that you are an Apple genius because you're such a genius you can't see how the fist of the Orwellian government is being rammed up your butthole. Yes, let's not venture into that territory before we devolve too far into silliness. But that commercial machine, I often talk about the machine. You know, I think you can look at it as what I would call the machine is the apparatus that is not necessarily requiring of conscious thought to operate it. It's the bureaucracy, it's the actual physical mechanisation of what is occurring, it's the financial trading, it's all those things that aren't necessarily revolving around people individually doing something or another. Whereas I also often refer to the beast of Babylon, the Babylonian whore, the Babylonian piglet, whatever you want to define that as. That to me, that beast imagery is more when you're talking about the metaphysical, the psychosocial structures of domination that have been part and parcel of this system. In many ways similar to a lot of what I talk about. It's not really one or the other, it's both being utilised against you. There is that triumvirate of control, and that triumvirate leading into the actual people that are not necessarily pulling strings, but poking causation, prodding, generally shunting in certain directions, like somebody playing some kind of ball sport would attempt to like pass on a football as it's in motion. They're not necessarily trying to initiate the motion, they're just redirecting it. And that's a lot of what I feel goes on in this system. This does loosely link me into what I was going to mention, talking about determinism and utilitarianism and that aspect of stuff, which I was talking about last week and Keelan talked about on his show. The physical existence we experience most definitely follows deterministic rules. If you leave it to its own devices, it would continue that cause and effect rule structure. But I feel strongly, I'm an advocate of free will. I do not believe in determinism. I think it's illogical, it falls down on itself. The physical experience we go through, and verging into the metaphysical as well, sort of has a cause and effect value to it. But you have the ability to, in a fashion similar to, say for example, Aikido, you can redirect the energy. You don't attempt to stop it, you don't attempt to directly deflect it or anything like that, you just redirect it, you rechannel it. This is similar to why I've often talked about anger is an energy. You just, it can be a useful energy if you can learn to accept it and take it into a creative form rather than allowing it to become destructive or knee-jerk reaction, emotive, violent type anger. It doesn't need to be that way. It's an energy that will help motivate and propel you, inspire you, etc., etc. And something I must mention before I forget, Zionist, Jesuit, ninja leprechaun, priests and assassins. Yeah, there you go, Mr. Jonesy, if you are actually listening to this and using whatever as talking points. There's a few phrases that maybe you don't mention often enough or don't talk about. You know, commonly people point at him. Yeah, it's a pretty much totally random side project. Sorry, folks, just testing a theory. Yes, Jesuit, ninja, leprechaun, assassins, they're coming to get you on the Zionist bus. Let's see just how many of them phrases sink in for him. But anyway, yes, I'm digressing off from talking around that potential to affect the cause and effect. I think a lot of I've got to stop saying I've talked about this before. I keep doing that recently. But it is a topic I know I've talked about a lot. I talk about it quite often. A lot of what the system relies on is divide and conquer. It tries to push people into divisions. If there isn't a division there, it will create one and then make people choose one side or the other. A very, very large part of what we experience as existence is dualistic in some manner. I've talked about that recently with the idea of the ego and the quiet self. You know, you have your left and right hemispheres of the brain. Each one operates differently. One operates in a very logical, linear, constructive fashion. The other one operates a bit like visual jazz. It operates in images, in a non-linear fashion, in loose connectivity, in entanglement, etc. It's you know, the two work in tandem, and it's finding the happy balance between the two and learning to access both and accept both as being part and parcel of what helps create your conscious awareness of existence, also subconscious awareness, but you, as most people understand it, exists in consciousness. That divide and conquer means that they want you, they need you to pick a side and shout for your team. As I was talking about the puppet show of the political theatre, they need you to pick a side. You have to pick a side so that then you can be polarised. And people can point at you, you're right wing because you agree with this, this and this. Oh, you're left wing, you're a commie. And they can just sit back and laugh while you attack each other. All your energy, all your creative ability as a sentient being within the potentiality of this cause and effects experience is diverted. They have successfully redirected your energy to where they would prefer to have it. I will come back to talking around this topic in a little bit on a slightly divert, because there's a couple of other tracks I want to play which I felt were appropriate at the moment. I've been trying not to allow myself to get into too long a rant, because I know I can, in an almost circular fashion, dance a merry jig on a road to nowhere. This is part of the danger when you start getting into these kind of topics and subject matter and information. It's like the good old UFO subjects. Yeah, there's lots of very, very interesting stuff out there you can find out about, look at, etc. Will you find an answer at the end of it? No. Will you find any real hard truths that you could, put out to the world to help everybody learn the secret, etc.? No, not really, because if there was, it would already be going on. And I know there'll be a lot of people out there that are into all the UFO material that will say, oh yes, but there's this, and you don't know about this, and this. Okay, fair enough. When the aliens land on the lawn at Washington, although I doubt it'll be there, more than likely be at the Vatican first. When the aliens land at the Vatican and declare that they've come for their gold, then I might actually, start listening a bit more intently. But for now, I've looked at it for quite a long time. I'm content to sit back and just watch the continuing growth of information, put it that way. But anyway, complete divergence there, sorry. Distracting myself while I was looking at my playlist. I partly wanted to play this for some of the ridiculous statements that have been coming out in the USA recently, primarily from the political theatre, simply because of all this show, this circus that's going on with the elections coming up. And it just seemed a couple of tracks I've been wanting to play for ages anyway, so a bit heavier, be about 10 minutes of good heavy metal for you, but I will be back shortly. Yeah, hopefully it's not too heavy for you. I'll turn the volume down just a tiny bit. Yes, anyway, I will be back shortly.
All right.
Flipping the Pyramid. www.flippingthepyramid.co.uk. We aim to discover the truth about our world and the issues it faces.
Yes, I must play with volumes on them. Yes, hello, welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed them. I think, I forgot to mention the Team America thing at the beginning. Just seemed appropriate for some of the ridiculous crap that they're coming out with at the moment. There's the Anglo-American and loads of other people involved in it, obviously, agenda. Maybe that should become a new anachronism. Yeah, how many more people, how many more civilians dying from drone attacks? And that's just in the ones that we actually get to hear about. Don't forget, there's not just in Pakistan, but it's also in Yemen, it's also in Somalia, down through the centre of Africa, etc., etc. they're rolling out the robotic army as you. I was going to say as you speak, but as people are not speaking, it speeds the rollout of that robotic armed fist of the surveillance state. Didn't pay your taxes, or drone comes to visit you. Pew pew pew. Oh dear, collateral damage. Yes, that is what you're facing on this road to nowhere if you leave it as a road to nowhere. Yes, I might get somewhat esoteric on you now. I'm going to get esoteric on your ass. Like Chuck Norris with a spliff. Wah! That was rather random, yes. Hopefully AJ will pick up on that one. But it still links into what I was talking about in the first place. And road to nowhere. It does seem that, it's not just us talking about it. I know Keelan did his show on Sunday talking about determinism. I sort of talked a little bit about it when I was talking about utilitarianism, etc. Lots of isms all over the place. But it seems to be a current meme, a current thread that's going on out there in the general discourse. And I think this was, what I was trying to get across last time was that to me is the agenda attempting to keep this whole transhumanist, eugenic, dead flesh idea, the zombie apocalypse idea adds into it as well. They're trying to keep this in the surface area of the global consciousness. The various articles we've had over the last couple of years, I can think going back to 2011, talking about things such as after-birth abortions, just that kind of level of you being told it's okay to accept that kind of death, that kind of extinguishing of life, so that then you will put up with things such as a robot, a drone, killing people where you've got no idea whether these people are innocent or not. From the trend we see of the evidence, there are a lot of innocent people being caught up in this. You only have to fit a certain age bracket to be labelled as a potential target and to be caught up in this collateral effect of these strikes by this robotic army. So, please, I think it's just us perpetuating on this current idea. It's not. It does actually seem to be quite important to people at the moment, which I think is a good point that people think about these things. But it did make me want to go back to that topic, that road to nowhere. I feel it is that deterministic perpetual motion machine. If you accept the whole premise of determinism, then it does leave you in that stark, empty, I was going to say reality, but that's not really the word, but the perspective that reality is nothing more than a perpetual motion machine. Because according to determinism, it starts from the Big Bang, it expands, it goes out, then it contracts again, comes back to a Big Bang, and it starts again, it goes out, it comes back to a Big Bang, and it starts again, it goes, and you end up with that round and round and round in a loop. Or if you believe that we will not suffer the big crunch, that there will be continuous infinite expansion, then you go back to, well, where did it start from in the first place? So therefore you end up in a loop of having to have a creator to initiate the first cause, to start the process of cause and effect, and then where did the creator come from, etc., etc., round and round and round you go. And it removes any and all potentiality from you to have any influence or say over what goes on in your life or the lives of those you care about. Completely and utterly removes it, totally gone. as somebody put it quite nicely the other day, it's sort of like, the argument of a rapist could turn around and say, well, I'm a rapist. It's just the way it is. That's what determinism turned me into. So, don't cry at me because I've raped somebody. That's what I've been determined to do. It becomes, as I said earlier, for me, it becomes a non-logical continuation to carry on with that perspective. But the Road to Nowhere song, for me, that Talking Heads song that I played at the start, is appropriate if you listen to the lyrics as a whole, rather than just, the chorus does give you that idea of the wheel, the road to nowhere. You're going on this road, but you're not getting anywhere. You're going round and round and round in a circle. Again, classically, it can point to Eastern traditions of the mandala, and you are on the wheel, butterfly on a wheel. But you listen to those lyrics, and for me, maybe it's a matter of perspective and opinion, but I find that it is actually pointing that out. That if all you concentrate on is this physical existence, which is heavily influenced by cause and effect, unless you interact with it, it is cause and effect unless you interact with it, then you do just go round and round, and you're not actually going anywhere. The universe will just do its thing round and round and round, and your part in it is like a leaf blown in the wind. You have no say in the direction. But I feel it points out quite nicely, as good art should do, as good music does. There's actually a bit more to it than that if you think about it. As I said before, yes, if you get into the whole physical side of what is existence, it is, cause and effect. I drink too much wine, I must go piss. It's cause and effect, my dear. What is that from the second Matrix movie, I think? But yes, cause and effect goes round and round, but don't feel that you cannot influence it. I'm deliberately being a little bit music heavy with this particular episode, just simply because there's a few tracks that I've wanted to play for a while, and I've been saving them for something appropriate. Because, I do try and find what I feel is appropriate to the kind of things I'm talking about. That's partly why it's virtual shamanizing. But before I get into playing those, that perspective of that hard determinism, that hard physical reality of nothing but cause and effects, leaves you as in my opinion, dead flesh automaton. Doesn't matter what you can conceive of, it is already predetermined whether you will or will not do it, etc. If you truly have no effect on the universe, how else can you approach what you are doing? I know Keelan was trying to say that you can, take the creativeness and the enjoyment that you feel is within it, and whether that comes from a deterministic value or not, it does not negate the good that you are potentially doing. I agree with him on that. Yes, if that is the way it is, if it is determinism, fair enough. At least you are still doing something that will hopefully benefit others and be creative and productive and empathic and all that good stuff that classic hippies love to talk about. Yes, let's all love each other and smoke pot, man. But I find it very difficult to accept that some of the greatest things, whether it be purely a theoretical invention or an actual physical creation of invention of some kind, whether that be art or a machine or technology, bit of technology, whatever, I find it very difficult to see how the creation, the new birth of a completely innovative idea or object could come purely from a deterministic standpoint. Because obviously we cannot as yet account for all the variables that could be part of reality, of existence. The scientists are still getting to grips with that, and I think they're coming big circle and returning back to a lot of ancient knowledge. But it's obviously, as I say, we still don't know all the variables that are involved. So yes, there could be variables that lead to that potentiality of how you create something new, but I find that such a big leap of biased hypotheses of just plucking a reasoning out to prove your argument. To me, shows a weakness in the argument in the first place. Yes, maybe you could say that, well, really we need to just invest more time and effort into learning about the physical variables, the reality variables, therefore we could then have a better chance of saying whether it is or isn't. Yeah, true, but we ain't there yet. This has been a topic for hot debate for as long as history goes back to record it for us. But in that way of influencing the flow of events, there's another word that AJ's been picking off me recently, flow. In that flow of the movement of energy, all matter is just energy condensed to a slow vibration. That flow of energy that is the everything of existence can be redirected, can be channeled, can be diverted. As far as we can so far prove, it cannot be destroyed or created, but it can be transformed, transmuted and redirected. If that's the case, then the majority of what we do is just that. I've said this before, one way to view your existence is you, the true you, the self you, not the ego masks that you wear for your day-to-day existence. No, the true you is an alchemist. At its core essence, it is an alchemist. It is the transceiver and transmuter of energy into the physical existence of everything that we see and interact with. Please don't trot off dancing, skipping into the field full of fairies and unicorns and rainbows and all that stuff. I'm not talking about The Secret or wishing things into existence. I've said that lots before, yes. But for me, part of interacting with and influencing what you experience as existence, a major part is played within that by sound, or what we call sound or interpret as sound. Again, I've said lots before, that shamanic principle, bardic principle of the utilization of sound, or the recognition of sound as being a core principle that drives a lot about our reality, possibly a very large amount of what we experience as existence. But before I divert off, I will, as I said, I'm going to play another couple of tracks. This will be about another 10 minutes, but these are ones I wanted to play for ages, like I said, so I'm going to play them. You'll just have to put up with it. Just turn it down just a tiny wee bit, just so I don't scare your speakers. Hopefully you enjoy it. Yeah, it's a good bit of heavy stuff again, but hopefully that might get you a bit energised. I will be back shortly.
We are flipping the pyramid. Flipping the pyramid.
We are flipping the pyramid. Whoa. Sorry, it's like the way that ends. A couple of classic tracks there. In my opinion, you always get some guitar bass type stuff from me, usually. But Did I forget to say what the others were? I think I did. Rage Against the Machine, Know Your Enemy, Soundgarden and Black Hole Sun. And the last two I just played was Ozzy Osbourne, Over the Mountain, and Jimi Hendrix Experience, Voodoo Child. I just, like I said, a couple of real classics to me, those two. I've been wanting to play them for a while, and it seemed appropriate at the moment, talking about this kind of esoteric point of view. And yes, that's where I will somewhat take it back to, as I was talking about the energy of everything, that quantum field, that soup of interacting causal effects flowing into each other, like the butterfly effect. The slightest little interaction will cause a ripple to run through the rest of that holographic entanglement. And this is why over the years for me I've gravitated towards music and the use of sound and stuff like that. It led me to a shamanistic perspective, along with many other things, yes, but that was part and parcel of it. And that was what I wanted to refer to. Again, leaping off from that idea of the deterministic cause and effect flow of existence, certainly of the physical existence that we experience, and how in a quantum sense what you're actually watching is ripples, waves of energy, or sound waves rippling through energy. If you imagine ripples on a pond when you drop in a pebble, your free will choice is the pebble. When you consider all the potentiality of an infinite number of free will choices, you get, or start to get, an idea of the seemingly chaotic interaction of waves that is taking place in the quantum reality around you. With each decision you make, you set off another series of interlacing waves which interact with all the others around them. I think I mentioned a while ago, and maybe not last week or the week before, the idea of the Coriolis effect within a toroidal energy field. If you can try and stretch the concept of that waves upon the surface of a pond when you throw in a pebble in a puddle. If you can take that concept and attempt at least to shift it up a gear into a three-dimensional effect, you start to get an inkling of the complex interactions of cause and effect, and why it may seem that we are suffering from purely a deterministic cause and effect reality, because it is sheerly so complicated an interaction of wheels within wheels within wheels, that no matter our human-centric egotism of believing that we can figure everything out, it served us very, very well. It still is serving us well as a primary directive that I feel, my perspective on things, that pushed us along this particular track of evolution. We were tool users, tool creators, innovators. That's what human beings do best, come up with new ideas. That's why a structure that stifles information and stifles creativity is, to me, nonsensical. You are stunting your own growth. But that idea of the interaction in almost a sound wave sense, that's the only way I can describe it in the words I have available to me in my limited vocabulary. Maybe I saw a video recently where one of the guys that I follow online, he's a member on FTP, YouTube channel calls himself Guido Jib. That's Steve Tagoos, who posts some music stuff online. He's a musician. Watching one of his vlog videos the other day, and he was mentioned a quote from Tolkien from the Lord of the Rings, where Treebeard is talking about how the shepherd becomes very much like the sheep, and the sheep like the shepherd, and that interrelationship of master and student within that dualistic sense, that dance, like I was talking about last week, that dance of the dualism, the two sides coming together to make the whole. That's the triumvirate. To me it is, anyway. I'm not a Mason. But it also made me think, as I'd been digesting these ideas, having listened to Keelan's show and seen other people talking about these ideas, been thinking and contemplating on stuff, and it reminded me of that part of Tolkien's work which a lot of people might not know because they might only know it from the films or whatever. It's not really mentioned. It's almost never mentioned in the story of the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit. It's vaguely referred to here and there. But if you look at his other works, primarily the Silmarillion, which was a precursor, a prequel to the other stories, and it's a little bit like a history book. Basically, it was how he re-envisioned the history to create his fantasy environment. It does go into a lot more than that, in my opinion, but just in relevance to this first. The way he describes the original creation of his fantasy world, of the world where all these characters live, it's created via a song. There is in the mythos, the Tolkien mythos, there is the original one creator, Eru, or Ilúvatar, and he creates some avatars, demigods, archons, however you want to define them. In the Tolkien sense, they're called the Valar, and they are like the demigods as we would see the various pantheon of gods from Greek or Roman or Babylonian mythology. There is a pantheon of them, and they sing for him as the great creator, as angels, because that's how he represents them, as angels are wont to do. They wish to please their creator, so they sing for him, and that song that they sing is the act of creation itself that brings the rest of existence into creation. It's a bit of a long story. Tolkien was quite a in-depth writer, but that's just to simplify it a little bit, boil it down. And that for me, as I think I might have mentioned lots before, I'm a bit of a Tolkien. I'm fascinated with his works, let's put it that way. I think there's a lot more to what he put out there than just a fantasy story. But that aside, that perspective of viewing the act of creation as a song of multiple participants. It was not just a singular act of, I want it to be this, or I create thusly, and it shall be shaped like this. It was an interplay, a to and fro of energies, of sounds, of different songs and styles, etc., merging together to the end result of what he allowed to be created through his power as the creator. Using that perspective, and this is why I'm talking about it now, using that perspective, think again of what I've said about the idea of that sea of energy that is the quantum field of everything, that quantum energy field, and each of our sentience is, I'm not sure if that's a word, if that counts as a word, our consciousness is, although as I said, it's more than just consciousness, it's conscious and subconscious together, plus your spiritual aspect. Anyway, those choices interacting with each other as within that song, through the vibratory waveforms passing through this quantum field, do you really think that it's worth not singing your song, even if in a deterministic fashion you are already determined to? Another way of looking at it in that respect of should or shouldn't, I've sort of had this stuck in my head for a while, is that attitude of, well, I can say all these things and I can point at this stuff that I often talk about with people and say, look, you need to look at this information, you need to think about this, you need to do, as I generally start frothing about this stuff. But if the worst comes to the worst, folks, if I'm wrong, then I just, look a bit foolish. I'm the crazy hermit wearing a tinfoil hat, frothing and yelling about stuff in the sky that's not really there, and all that usual kind of labels that people throw at you. That's the worst that can happen. But if I'm right in even part of the kind of things I talk about, then that road to nowhere is leading to a very dark and unpleasant and uncomfortable cage. Is it not? To me, it seems a sensible idea to sing up your part in that chorus, to join in that chorus, so that you can at least have a bit more assurance that what you're looking at does not come to that dark place. You can, by your free will interaction, hopefully redirect that flow of energy, raise the chorus to a point that seems more beneficial to the whole rather than the discordant interruption and domination of the unfortunate agenda that we are facing at the moment, that could be seen as the opposing voices. And I'm not trying to play into that trap of divide and conquer. I'm just hopefully presenting a bit more of a holistic view of one side or the other are both actually standing on the same planet. We may see ourselves as separated by cultural or social or nationalistic divisions, etc., and divisions of wealth and power and all these different kind of divisions, but we're all still human beings standing on this planet, or sitting down or lying down, but you get the point. Hopefully, I feel it's certainly true at the moment, you seem to be seeing a rising of that interaction. I prefer to be optimistic, in the same way as I agree with Keelan's idea that, if determinism is true, then at least, if you're doing things that you feel are helpful and creative and productive, then, at least you're getting enjoyment out of life. You may have been determined to get enjoyment out of life, but still, why look a gift horse in the mouth, but I do feel there is a growing chorus of people that are actively turning round and either asking why, what, where, when, who, how, what, or just saying no, or I don't agree. What particular side of the fence they might happen to fall onto or choose to put themselves onto, or whether they are able to see beyond the fence and see the whole garden, hopefully, that to me is part and parcel of the process. That to me is part and parcel of joining in the song. You want to create something different, you have to join in the creation of it. And this for me again wraps right back round in that circular road to nowhere. Where does it bring you back to? If you wish to change the world, where should you start? With yourself. Yeah, good old cliche. Why is it cliche? Because it rings true, unfortunately. Yes, I don't deny the fact that if we can persuade some of these crazy people that seem to be dragging us this direction to change what they're doing, influencing others, hopefully connecting to others. But I'm more and more have always been drawn towards that idea that by their own choices and by their own actions, they create that change. So you can help them by trying to plant seeds, by helping them by presenting information to them, or a different aspect, a different perspective, a different way of looking at things, thinking about things. Maybe that's part of the problem. People have been so funneled into boxes, box within box within box, that there's not much space left for their minds to actually exist. They're trapped within their own little boxes. They find it difficult to conceive of anything outside of those boxes. You have to teach them how to sing again. Help them remember where their own voice is and what their own song is. Yes, getting rather esoteric for you in that respect. But that does nicely lead me to wrapping it up, because a couple of tracks I want to play for you which I think will be worthwhile. One of them is a clip of a quote, a recording of Alan Watts, which was actually put together as a little video by the same guys who did South Park, Trey Parker and Matt Stone. I'll just put the link in the chat room if people want to watch the animated version that they did to go with it. But I just want to play the audio clip because I think it's good enough on its own. It's just listening to what he's got to say. And then there's something else I'll play after that, which hopefully from the energy I've whipped up with some of the more energetic sounds that I've used, maybe give you a moment to reflect and breathe. I think you'll get what I mean when you listen to it. It's not any particular track. Again, you'll understand what I mean when you hear it. But yes, thank you for listening, folks. Hopefully I haven't wandered too far off the beaten track within your brain and taken you off in mad, crazy circles on a road to nowhere. Maybe that road to nowhere just help you see the wheel so you can start stepping off it. Keep talking, keep debating, keep evolving. Hopefully we all are. It's part of the process. Take care, folks. Come back again tomorrow for Red's great music show, and I will rant at you again next week, no doubt. Take care.
Floating in a sea of misinformation, outright lies, and institutionalized indoctrination. Floating in a sea of misinformation, outright lies, and institutionalized indoctrination.
Flipping the whole paradigm of that hierarchical system on its head.
Together, we are flipping the pyramid. The corporate-controlled media, the agendized academia. The corporate-controlled media, the agendized academia.
Flipping the whole paradigm of that hierarchical system on its head.
We must first understand what is really taking place. Floating in a sea of misinformation, outright lies, and institutionalized indoctrination. Together, we are flipping the pyramid.